itself from this statement, but rather chooses to rationalize it. We cannot accept this as an ordinary misguided statement because, as I indicated earlier, it is too coherent to be taken less seriously. Besides, we believe his threats are not in isolation. He is inspired by the NDC's presumptive leader, the former President John Dramani Mahama, who publicly touted the NDC's credentials. Quote, NDC has revolutionary roots, and when it comes to unleashing violence, no one can beat us to it. Indeed, former President John Dramani Mahama and the NDC demonstrated this through their actions after the loss of the 2020 presidential elections. He held press conference after press conference and misled Ghanaians that the election had been stolen, and ordered thousands of unsuspecting party youths into the streets around the country, burning markets, attacking innocent citizens, and destroying and vandalizing public property. There's a video to that effect. We have it, we can watch it, but if not, we can just carry on. But all of you were witnesses in this country when that happened. Of the Supreme Court. And you recall the famous mention of the description of the Supreme Court as the unanimous FC. All of it against the background that he has won the election. But what we know now, ladies and gentlemen, we have been told by the NDC chairman, then the General Secretary, Mr. Asedu Nketia, that the NDC knew all this time that the former President John Dramani Mahama had lost the election and that the NDC had lost the election. They knew this all along, but they wanted King Solomon to cut the baby into two. Remember the Mutie Three. When they were jailed, we're all in this country, the NDC ministers lined up and signed a petition for the former president to pardon them. This is a party whose leaders oversaw the slaughter of 3 judges and a military officer in 1982. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe this about the NDC, that the statement that the youth organizer made is not in isolation, or did he misspoke. He is clear-eyed about what he was saying. His remarks reflect the culture and ethos of the NDC. We expect the police and the courts to bring the Swami youth organizer to justice very quickly to deter others who might be harboring similar violent and delinquent thoughts in the NDC. We demand the NDC to unreservedly disavow, disassociate, and expel this young man from their party without delay. That's the only point we can begin to take the NDC seriously about this comment that the young man has made, as though that they are not shielding him and they really want to discourage such commentary in our politics. Nothing short of this, ladies and gentlemen, will suffice. Now, we'll move to our next subject for today, and that is about the Auditor General's report and matters arising. The Auditor General's report on the COVID-19 expenditure between March 2020 to June 2022 raised key issues of concern. 2 of such issues: it creates a false impression of wrongdoing concerning the expenditure of some 10 billion of the COVID funds on activities unrelated to COVID-19. It also flagged some infractions to do with the 11.8 billion supposedly spent on COVID-19 activities. Friends from the media, COVID-19 impacted the entire economy. We all lived through it. And you recall the historic shutdown of the economy and how we're all locked in our homes for 2 weeks, and additional week after that. The deadly COVID-19 together threatened everything about our being as a people, our lives, and our livelihoods. The funding sources for the COVID-19 response fund did not stipulate what direct activities to spend the monies on, except to state that it is for budget support and for COVID-19 preparedness and response support. This is because lives and livelihoods are inseparable. Therefore, the government is expected to do everything to protect its people, and that was precisely done in Ghana. We all are witnesses to it. Friends from the media, you recall the globally acclaimed view of President Akufo-Addo, which says that we know how to bring back the economy, but we do not know how to bring human beings back to life. In essence, the President Akufo-Addo at the time was committing his government to do whatever it took to preserve lives and livelihoods. The lives and livelihoods of Ghanaians are inextricably linked. Therefore, there cannot be any unrelated expenditure in terms of trying to protect the livelihoods and lives of Ghanaians under COVID-19. This is why we find it confounding that the Auditor General will elect to disaggregate the expenditure of 21.8 billion COVID fund into saying that some is for COVID expenditure and another is not for COVID expenditure. In our view, all expenditure during the period aimed at protecting Ghanaians, our lives and our livelihoods equals COVID-19 expenditure. The infraction flag in respect of the 11.8 billion must be pursued and recovered where wrongdoings are established. However, we observe some audit protocol breaches in the case of some MDAs, which has led to some expenditures being flagged. To highlight these procedure breaches because failure to do so sustains the false impression that was created as though something wrong had been done. Friends from the media, the $120 million expended through the UNICEF AVAT platform to procure some 16.9 million Johnson & Johnson vaccines should not have been flagged, given effective communication. This would have come to light if officials had worked diligently. As it turned out, the Ministry of Health has agreed to a delivery schedule tied to the domestic uptake of the vaccine. Therefore, the $81 million flagged by the auditors is not lost to the state, and everybody knows that. The infraction cited against the Ministry of Information, which the NDC appears to be harping on, is a product of a breach of the regular audit procedure. Ideally, the audit service would typically organize an exit conference to discuss their findings and allow the agency the opportunity to clarify where necessary. However, this was not done. In a letter by the Ministry of Information to the auditors, it detailed the explanations to justify the basis for that expenditure to the audit. But now the truth would not matter because the NDC has taken off already with this false impression that something had been done wrong in that case, when indeed it was a question of breach of procedure. At least, ladies and gentlemen, you know today, and so you can correct the NDC when they make those false claims in your studios. Friends from the media, what is the NDC saying about the Auditor General's report and the infractions thereof? What is their record in this arena? Let's cast our mind back to the 2016 Auditor General's report under former John Dramani Mahama, where the auditors found rocks of incomparable magnitude. Let me just name a few for your attention. There was one flag, the payment outside gift mix, the review of Government of Ghana transactions, sampled and validated by the Auditor General's report in 2016, showed that the Ministry of Finance released a total of 56.4 million to the Electoral Commission and the Ministry of Youth and Sports. So the total amount of 56.4 million was split between the two ministries, about 29.9 million to the Electoral Commission, 26.43 million to the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And the two ministries processed these amounts and paid them to their suppliers outside of the GiveMix platform, contrary to Section 25(6) of the PFMA Act. Section 25, Section 6, Section overspending of budget allocation without approval. The NDC in 2016 auditor's report, a financial statement also disclosed that 3 MDAs, namely the Ghana Education Service, exceeded its budget allocation by 1.7 billion. The Ghana Health Service also exceeded its budget by 385.1 million. The Ministry of Finance exceeded its allocated budget by 33.5 million. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the big one. A 1,245% increase in Office of Government Machinery expenditure. In 2016, the initial allotted government budget of the Office of Government Machinery was 768.2 million. This was the budget estimate in 2016 for the Office of Government Machinery. However, a revised budget in the same year, mid-year, saw the initial allotted amount, which was 768.2 million, rose to 3 billion half year. From 762.2 million, the NDC revised its budget on government machinery to 3 billion in 2016. Furthermore, the 2016 auditor's report on pages 21 and 22 revealed the revised amount of 3 billion was overspent again by 3.1 billion, bringing the total amount spent on Office of Government Machinery in 2016 alone to 6,103,994,114 cedis. This is the NDC record.